The hillside itself begins to move, and it isn't grass. Pattern interrupt, cold open, reveal lento. 20,000 warriors were lying in perfect silence. A British camp below had no walls at all. No one had ordered a single wagon moved. In an hour, that camp would simply cease to exist. But that morning had started like any other. Confident men shaved, ate, and mocked the cowardly enemy. They had no idea they were already surrounded. Open loop, por que neo fecaram o acampamento? Weeks earlier, an empire had picked a fight it didn't need. A British commander wanted a short, glorious war. Pattern interrupt, mapa animado de invaseo. He marched thousands of men into Zulu territory. The Zulu king had only asked to be left alone. But an ultimatum was written to be refused. 30 days to disband an entire nation's army. Of course, the answer came back, never. So the invasion began, 3 columns strong. The central column carried the general himself. He believed no native army could stand against rifles. His scouts warned of a Zulu force nearby. He didn't believe warriors would dare attack a camp. Then false reports lured him away from it. He split his force, chasing a phantom enemy. He took half his men, and rode off. Behind him, the camp was left half-finished. No wagons circled. No trenches dug. Pattern interrupt, freeze, plano aberto do acampamento aberto. Just tents, rifles stacked, and open ground. A camp built for a war they didn't expect. Somewhere close, 20,000 men were already moving. Cliffhanger. At dawn, mounted scouts rode out to look. On a ridge, they saw the ground itself darken. Not shadow, thousands of seated warriors, waiting. A rider raced back with the alarm. Want to know why nobody believed him? Stay to the end. CTA number 1, in character, Coes payoff. Officers in camp waved off the warning. Surely the main army was miles away, chasing decoys. This had to be only a small raiding party. No one sounded a general alarm. Soldiers kept their rifles stacked in neat rows. Ammunition boxes sat sealed in a distant wagon. The camp's commander delayed, unsure who was even in charge. Meanwhile, on that ridge, a single shot rang out. A British scout, discovered, panicked, and fired. It was never meant to happen, not yet. In an instant, the plan changed completely. 20,000 warriors rose to their feet as one. There was no more hiding, and no more waiting. The greatest native army in Africa began to run. Straight toward a camp that still wasn't ready. Cliffhanger. The Zulu attacked in a shape shaped like a beast. Pattern interrupt, mapa animado, formiceo, Schieffer's do buffalo. 2 horns to encircle, a chest to crush the center. Pattern interrupt, diagramma tatico. British riflemen formed a thin line outside camp. At first, their volleys tore great gaps in the ranks. For a moment, it almost looked like it might hold. Then the ammunition began to run desperately low. Boxes were sealed tight, screwed shut for transport. Quartermasters demanded paperwork before releasing more rounds. Soldiers ran back and forth, rifles falling silent. The gaps between men grew wider by the minute. On the flanks, the horns kept spreading wider. They swept far around, unseen, unstopped. A native contingent on the flank broke and fled. That single gap was all the Zulu needed. Warriors poured through, faster than any horse could warn. The line, thin already, began to fold inward. An eclipse crossed the sky at that very hour. Zulu warriors would later call it an omen. Pattern interrupt, su escuris, sombra cruza o campo. To the British, it was simply growing dark. Pattern interrupt, musica muda, tom vira sombrio. Officers shouted orders no one could hear anymore. Companies lost contact with the companies beside them. The line that was meant to hold, broke. And 20,000 men surged into the gap. There was no second line behind it. Cliffhanger. What followed was not a battle anymore. It was a retreat with nowhere left to run. Comment the thin red line if you've heard this story. CTA number 2, in character, POS payoff. Small clusters of soldiers stood back to back. They fought until their ammunition was entirely gone. Then they fought with bayonets, fists, rifle butts. Officers tried to save the regiment's sacred colors. They rode for the river, flags wrapped tight. The river itself became a second battlefield. Men and horses drowned trying to cross it. Warriors waited on the far bank for survivors. Few who reached the water ever reached the other side. Inside the camp, the tents were being torn down. Wounded men had nowhere left to be carried. Wagons burned. Horses bolted. Discipline dissolved entirely. Some men simply stood their ground and waited. They knew retreat meant dying in the open anyway. Better to die shoulder to shoulder, they decided. In small circles, they held until the very end. Within 2 hours, it was already over. Pattern interrupt, silencio total, corte seco pro campo vazio. Over 1,300 men lay across the camp. More British dead than any battle in decades. A modern army, broken by warriors on foot. The Zulu had won the day completely. But their own losses were staggering too. Thousands of warriors lay among the fallen tents. Victory here would cost them everything, later. And 40 miles away, one small mission waited next. Open loop para o proximo video. News of the disaster took 24 days to cross the sea. When it arrived, an empire refused to believe it. Surely native warriors couldn't defeat modern rifles. But the wagons, the colors, the dead said otherwise. A commander returned to find his own camp gone. He would spend the rest of his life explaining it. Newspapers demanded to know how this happened. The answer was simple, and deeply uncomfortable. Pattern interrupt, silencio, texto natila. Overconfidence had split a force in half. Warning signs had been dismissed as native cowardice. A camp had never even been properly closed. And ammunition had been locked behind red tape. Every single failure had been entirely preventable. The Empire's pride had cost 1,300 lives. Yet 40 miles away, that same